हाँ बताओ.
So, in recording 7, if we can go to, I wanted for us to hear last 3 minutes again, 3-4 minutes from 34 minutes onwards, because that entire chunk I am not feeling like able to fully coherently get. So
Okay. Recording 7 मतलब JV एक परिचय 7.
no, not recording 7. 0, हाँ, एक परिचय 7, the lecture,
Right.
which we just finished, I think, day before yesterday,
Okay.
from 34 minutes.
Okay. Hmm. 34.
Yeah, this is good.
अच्छा, जीवन की 10 क्रिया है. No.
जैसा बाम बना
Yeah.
अलंकार संबंधी वस्तु उपकरण और दूरश्रवण दूरगमन दूरदर्शन संबंधी वस्तु उपकरण, इन वस्तु उपकरणों के साथ हम समृद्ध हो चुके हैं. बाकी चीज यदि इसके अलावा कोई चीज है वो मनुष्य उपयोगी नहीं है. जैसा
Should I translate as we go along, or do you have a particular point?
This is okay from now.
बम बनाना, बारूद बनाना, युद्ध के लिए सामग्री तैयार करना और युद्ध के लिए युद्धपोत तैयार करना, युद्ध के लिए आकाशयान तैयार करना और उसके लिए दूर मार मिसाइल तैयार करना, समीप मार मिसाइल तैयार करना, मध्यम मार्गी मध्यम दूर मिसाइलों को तैयार करना, ये सब तो भाई लोगों ने कर ही चुका है. ये सब जो है मानव के लिए साधन नहीं है. ये मानव साधन के अर्थ में नहीं होती है. इसके विपरीत इसकी निरर्थकता और इसकी माने एक प्रकार के बर्बादी का आसार ये सिद्ध हो जाता है. किस विधि से? तर्क विधि से और घटना विधि से, दोनों विधि से. और ये जो सिद्ध होता है,
हाँ, what?
Till here is fine. Now, this also is understood that all this utility
तात्विक विधि से, व्यवहार विधि से.
Sorry, वो गलती से. हाँ, all this utility
we establish through logic. Like we say, the logic for making bomb, मतलब how we like justify it is through logic. Tark vidhi se we justify making bombs. This is done from now. Tattvik se when he starts now is something that entire connection. Yeah.
So actually, even regarding the previous thing with Tark Vidhi, he's saying ये तो समझ में आ जाता है Tark Vidhi से. As in, even with logic, we can understand how these are not of human utility. Not that, of course, we did use logic to justify making them also, but he's saying even within our discussion, we can logically understand how this is not of human utility. And then he'll say, so Tark Vidhi se to we understand it using the logical method, but then there are two other ways of understanding. The Tatvik, or I called it fundamental that time, let's call it existential now. So existential level and the behavioral level. So that's what we'll explain.
तर्क विधि से, तीनों विधि से मनुष्य का उपयोग सिद्ध होता है. तात्विक विधि से क्या उपयोग है भाई? हम सुखी होना है, तात्विक विधि का चोट है. हम सुखी हो गए माने तात्विक रूप में हम व्यवहारिक हो गए.
So he's saying what is there to be understood at the existential or the tattvic level. The fundamental thing to understand at the tattvic level for humans, at the existential level for humans, is the main point of that is that our happiness is our existential our dharma, principle of orderliness. So if we want to understand anything to do with humans at the existential level, the main point is that we need happiness. We want to be happy.
तात्विक विधि का चोट है. हम सुखी हो गए माने तात्विक रूप में हम व्यवहारिक हो गए.
So if we become happy, then at the existential level we become behavioral. So because the behavioral is stemming from the existential. So it is our existential, if we become happy and fulfilled at the existential level, that makes us capable of becoming behavioral also, behaviorally happy.
ठीक है. तो और उसको प्रमाणित करने के लिए चले, प्रमाणित हो गए, हम व्यवहारिक हो गए. हम सुखी हूँ, इसको हम प्रमाणित कर पाया माने हम व्यवहारिक हो गए।
So we become happy at the existential level, then we go about evidencing it, our happiness, and that evidence itself is our behavioral. All evidence is going to be at the behavioral level. That is our behavioral capacity, the evidence of our happiness.
Our behavior with others around the society.
Behavioral has to do with, matlab, you know, it has to do with behavior with others only. But these are also looking at 3 levels of understanding. So we'll understand the ekdam existential principle. Then we'll also understand the logics, the hows and the hows actually. And then we'll also understand not the logic, but we'll also be living it in our behavior, in our conduct. So whatever is visible, basically, just all our understanding, our logic, our work, and our behavior are all compiled in our living. That level of living is called the behavioral. So the macro living. So this is also in terms of the levels of understanding. So there is the macro that has to be understood. That is called the vyavaharik or the behavioral. So the macro world of, okay, so there are plants and 4 orders and human being and human relationships and human work. That is all behavioral. Then there is the level which is a bit more subtle than that, which is called the subtle level, micro level. That is the human psychology or the atomic structure. Because after all, the human psychology is also dependent on the atomic structure. So what is the principle, fundamental mechanism based on which all of this macro world is playing out? That is the atomic level. And that is also called the Tarkic level. That is what you understand through logic. And then the fundamental Karan is actually, I mean, I don't know if I should go into this right now because it's not been covered, but Karan and Mahakaran are the next 2 remaining levels. Karan is for an atom to be functioning the way it is functioning, the Karan is the nucleus. For the Jeevan atom to be functioning the way it is functioning, the cause is the Atma, the soul, which is the name given to the nucleus of the Jeevan atom. And the Mahakaran or the ultimate causation, that is the final level, that is for everything, the ultimate causation is coexistence. So this level of understanding causation and ultimate causation is basically your existential understanding. Then everything that is to do with logic, that is to do with the micro, that is to do with the mechanisms, that is the logical level. And then all that is behaviorally seen around us, the macro world. And in humans, our macro living is in our work and in our behavior, our conduct, basically. That is the behavioral level. So this is what he's saying. When we understand, so experience happens in the soul of the Jeevan. And that is what culminates in our being able to live out behaviorally with justice and work with kindness. So that will be the evidence of our happiness. Our ability to live happily is the evidence of our happiness that has happened at the existential level. So that is what he means by, once we understand at the existential level, once we become happy at the existential level, and we go about evidencing that happiness, that is what it means by us becoming behavioral. Because then that is translating to our work and behavior also.
Understood.
इन दोनों के बीच में तर्क रहता ही है। हम ऐसे ढंग से हम प्रमाणित हो जाऊंगा, ऐसा ढंग से हम अनुभूत हो जाऊंगा, ये बात रहता है। इस ढंग से तर्क, तात्विक और व्यवहार विधि से मनुष्य प्रमाणित होने की बात आता है। दो जितने भी हम बात करते हैं, पढ़ते हैं, लिखते हैं, ये सब तर्कनिष्ठ है। ये तर्क के आधार पर ज्यादा हम बताते हैं। तर्क से तात्विकता के अर्थ को छूता है, यही संप्रेषणा का महिमा है। यदि संप्रेषणा में हमारा तात्विकता छू गए, तात्विकता इंगित हो गए सामने व्यक्ति को, हमारा संप्रेषणा का अभिव्यक्ति का सार्थकता है।
So the evidence at the existential level is that we are happy. We experience it, that is evidence. The evidence at the Tarkic or the logical level is that we are able to express it, express this understanding, express our happiness in a logical way. And we are able to indicate towards this existential reality to others also. So that is the evidence at the logical level. Our expression, all our communication, all our language essentially has to do with logic. And then the evidence at the behavioral level is when we live it out in our conduct, we are evidencing our happiness, evidencing justice, evidencing order. So that is the behavioral evidence. Hi, Manjuji. So Prachi had some.
I'm later.
That's okay. Prachi had a question regarding the 7th recording, so we just gone back to it.
Acha. Okay.
So,
So what was the question?
No, the question was I didn't followed last 3 minutes. So actually we are just I'm making her
Acha.
So there was
Acha.
a particular question that entire Tarkic and Tattvic and behavior ka connection and was something I wasn't understanding fully. So yes.
Okay.
so
ये मैंने अनुभव किया है, वैसे ही आप भी किए होंगे। ये कोई नया नहीं है, आदिकाल से ही आदमी इस प्रकार की चीज करते ही आया है। और दूसरा, और वही तर्क व्यवहार की सार्थकता को मैंने इंगित कराते हैं।
right. So he's explaining the relevance of the logical level also. So logic is where our articulation, where our expression comes from. So A, it indicates towards our the existential reality that we have seen. So through language, we can share what we have understood. But also through language, we can explain how we are behaving. So I behaved in this way, or my behavior is in this way because of this. So logic actually connects both the existential and the behavioral. So these are the two significances or values of the logical level.
व्यवहार में सार्थकता क्या है बताया? मानव प्रयोजन 4, समाधान, समृद्धि, अभय, सहअस्तित्व, ये 4 को यदि इंगित करा देता है, इस विधि से ये चारों चीज मिल सकता है, इसको यदि बोध कराता है, ये व्यवहार ज्ञान हुआ। उसमें तात्विक ज्ञान हो गया। तात्विक ज्ञान के लिए भी तर्क चाहिए, व्यवहार ज्ञान के लिए भी तर्क चाहिए। इसको आप अपने में जांच सकते हैं। ये कुल मिलाकर के पहला उपलब्धि यही है, परिवार में हम अपना मूल्यांकन, परिवारजनों का मूल्यांकन किस आधार पर करेंगे, और दूसरे किसी आधार पर नहीं हो सकती, केवल मूल्यों के आधार पर और संबंधों के आधार पर, मूल्यांकन सहित उभय तृप्ति की प्रमाणों के आधार पर हम व्यवहार में न्यायिक हों, इस बात को हम प्रमाणित कर सकते हैं, घोषित कर सकते हैं, सत्यापित कर सकते हैं।
Drishta, got it, understood. Now
Okay.
we thank you.
All right. Manjuji, anything? If you have any.
It was like Greek to me.
Oh no.
Didn't understand one word.
Of the
But
Hindi?
give it a of the Hindi or whatever. Hindi is not even one word.
Okay. I hope
Never
the
mind.
English was
Never mind. I will go over it and see.
Yeah. But
No.
if I were to just give a very, very brief thing, he's talking
yeah.
about these 3 levels of understanding and evidencing. So the most fundamental level of understanding is the existential level of understanding. And that is that we humans or Jeevans in the human body, we want to be happy. That is our most underlying fundamental nature. Then we have, that can be understood, that can be experienced, that is what is experienced. And then this is what can be translated or evidenced in the form of behavior, right? So if we understand, if we experience coexistence, we will become happy at our existential level. And then we will go about evidencing that happiness in our behavior, in our conduct, in our work. So that will be through justice. And so our ability to do justice is actually a culmination of this existential happiness, this existential experience of coexistence. So that is the existential level. Then its evidence is at the behavioral level, which is in the form of justice. And linking these two is the logical level. So this logical level is all about understanding the hows. So understanding exactly the mechanism and explaining. So all sorts of articulation, language, expression, all of that is happening in the logical level in us. And this logical level can do two things. It can explain what we have experienced and understood at the existential level, and it can also explain and help to communicate what our behavioral expression is all about. So I will explain, say Baba is explaining here that coexistence is this way, this way, this way. But he's also explaining that when you understand coexistence, your living becomes in this way, this way, this way. And what is your living all about? And when you are happy and understand coexistence, then your living is all about, it will be resolved, it will be prosperous, you will be resolved, you will be prosperous, there will be confidence in the present, and there will be an overall evidence of coexistence. So that is him explaining his living. You can always see his living. But when we see something, we all derive different things based on our own receptivity. When I see Baba behaving a certain way, when someone else sees him behaving a certain way, we're all deriving different things from it. But that's because it will depend on our understanding, our receptivity, which is limited. But now he can use the power of language and logic to explain his behavior from his perspective, from his level of understanding, which is higher than us. So it can allow us to understand his behavior, which we didn't have access to if we were just relying on our own capacities to
Judgment.
understand it. So that is the significance of this logical level, that it is language and logic and articulation is capable of communicating to others the existential as well as the behavioral. So that's what he was talking about.
Thank you.
Then yesterday we had started up on the sharing stopped. So yesterday we had started discussing Astitva Darshan, or a holistic view of existence. And we had just started it. He was talking about how there is nature and then there is potence or space. Nature is all those things that are countable as units. And that includes both base matter. So Jad Prakriti, I found out that the translation for that is base matter, or that means insentient matter. All of insentient matter is base nature. And then there is the conscious nature, which is just Jeevans basically. And all of these, so all Jeevans are also countable units, and all other non-Jeevan base atoms are also countable units. You can count 1 atom, 2 atom, 3 atom, or 1 subatomic particle, 2 subatomic particle. So all of these countable things are given the noun nature. They're given the name nature. And this other reality, the other entity that exists, is given the name potence or space. And he had said that on the planet, you can see that existence unfolds in the form of 4 orders, and each order exhibits its conduct exhibits its nature in the form of a definite conduct. And that is the basis for its definite participation. And all other orders have their definite nature, definite conduct, all except humans. So currently where we had paused, I think, was that humans are the most evolved entities out of the 4 orders. We have the knowledge order, and yet our conduct is the most lacking, is the most deficient. So this is what is sad, and this is something we can work on. So this is where we had paused yesterday.
कोई शब्द भी नहीं है, कोई बात भी नहीं, कोई भी, ठीक है, तो वो जाना नहीं रहता है, माना रहता है। अस्तित्व की चारों अवस्था देखा तो मानव ज्ञानावस्था में गण्य होता है। ने को एक सूत्र मिलता है, ये सूत्र को जांचना आप ही को है, मुझको ही है, दूसरे को ही है, हर व्यक्ति को जांचना है अपने।
Yes. Of course, and we had ended at the principle that we are wrong we are many when we are wrong. We are basically fragmented and many when we are in the wrong, and we are united or one when we are in the right. This is a principle that we have found and has been repeated throughout this workshop.
तो ऐसे जांचने जाते हैं तो हम अपने में कौन सा चीज समझने वाला है उसको पहले समझने एक सूत्र मिलता है। ये सूत्र को अपने व्यवस्था को प्रमाणित करता है। वैसे मानव भी अपने आचरण के अनुसार प्रमाणित करेगा, छोटा सा का, ठीक है। ये अपने को एक सूत्र मिलता है।
Oh, so all entities, and that was a different principle. All entities evidence themselves in the form of their conduct. Similarly, humans will also be able to evidence themselves in the form of their definite conduct. This is a principle that we derive.
ये सूत्र को जांचना आप ही को है, मुझको ही है, दूसरे को ही है।
This principle must be verified by you yourself, or by me myself, or by anyone else.
हर व्यक्ति को जांचना है अपने में।
Every individual must verify this in themselves.
तो ऐसे जांचने जाते हैं तो हम अपने में कौन सा चीज समझने वाला है उसको पहले समझने का दौड़।
So when we go about verifying, or when we go about checking, so what is it within us that is worth understanding? That has to be seen.
अपने में कौन सा चीज समझने वाला है उसको पहले समझने का दौड़। समझ करके निर्वाह करने वाला क्या चीज है उसका दौड़।
उसका दौड़, what is it? दौड़।
समझ करके निर्वाह करने वाला क्या चीज है उसका दौड़। और
ध्रुव।
हर व्यक्ति को जांचना है अपने में। तो ऐसे जांचने जाते हैं तो हम अपने में कौन सा चीज समझने वाला है उसको पहले समझने का दौड़। समझ करके निर्वाह करने वाला क्या चीज है उसका दौड़।
I think he's saying dौड़ only. So first
I think he means more like say.
no.
Okay, you say. Actually, I'll say it first because I'll forget. What does it mean? जो समझने वाला चीजों पहले समझे. What does it mean? It is.
हाँ.
I mean, फिर.
So first he's saying broadly, what he's saying is that the first we will go about understanding what is identifying what it is in us that is worth understanding, and then we will go about
even that I
understanding.
don't understand. Even this is what I don't understand. This I don't understand. What does it mean? First we'll go about understanding what
is worth understanding. So what he's saying, okay, we must understand, but what is it that is worth understanding first? So first we'll run about, I think he's saying that first we'll go about trying to see what it is that is worth understanding for us. And then we will go about figuring out what it is that must be lived out on the basis of this understanding. So first we need to figure out what has to be understood. And second, we also have to figure out what has to be done on the basis of this understanding. See if you hear it again, if it makes sense now.
हम अपने में कौन सा चीज समझने वाला है उसको पहले समझने का दौड़। समझ करके निर्वाह करने वाला क्या चीज है उसका दौड़। और दौड़ करके क्या पाएंगे इसका दौड़। पाने की बात प्रमाण का निरंतर दौड़।
Right? So he's talking about these are the 4 laps basically of our race. These are 4 milestones that we must meet. So first we are running towards the first checkpoint, which is what is it that is worth understanding. That we'll first run towards that. Once we've identified what is it that is worth understanding, okay, on the basis of this understanding, what is it that is worth nirvaha karna, so to live out based on this understanding. So some will form some understanding, but now how do we live it out? How do we live out this understanding? Okay, we understand justice is this, and these are the relationships, these are the values, but how do I live these out? That needs to be understood second. Then when you live, then another thing that needs to be understood is as a result of living these out, whatever are we reaching towards? What are our goals? So, what is it that we are hoping for? And then eventually also the evidence. I think the last thing was
क्या
evidence.
पाएंगे इसका दौड़, पाने की बात प्रमाण का निरंतर दौड़.
Right. And after we have achieved those, for instance, we run towards first resolution. We achieve that. And then we also run towards prosperity, and then we achieve that. But that doesn't mean that it ends there. Now we will continuously, eternally be evidencing that continuously. So now resolution we've reached, but resolution doesn't end once you reach. It's not like you reach a hill and then it ends. You reach it and then you continue it. So then that's what you're constantly working towards. Resolution, prosperity, fearlessness, and coexistence. So this is what he's saying. When he's saying God, I think what he means is, what are we working towards? So first we're working towards identifying what to understand. Then we understand it. Then we are working towards living out our understanding. And then we are working towards achieving the goals that we think we must achieve. And then we are living towards sustaining those goals, sustaining the evidence of this goal that we have achieved based on our understanding. Does it make it any clearer?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
No, of course not.
No?
I just know the words. The words are clear. But these are exactly the questions which we need to be guided towards. If all this one knows, then one knows anyways. Then what do I need? How do I get it? Exactly, one doesn't know. That's where all the problems come. No, in the
Yeah. Because we haven't
knowing what is it.
We are
how to
still in
live
the
it out.
first lap. We're just trying to reach the first checkpoint as of now. What is it worth understanding?
I mean, that we know we want happiness. That's a checkpoint. But happiness, how to get and all that, exactly what one wants to know. No?
Yeah. So then
Everyone
for
wants
happiness,
I want everything.
what do we
Probably
need to
everyone wants
understand?
everything. Not to understand. What is it to understand?
Yeah. Huh?
What is there something to understand?
That's the
Is
whole
there something to understand about happiness?
Yes.
There's
yes.
something to understand about what is happiness.
Exactly. That is what. So first we decide, say we want happiness. But then the question emerges, if we really want happiness, the question naturally emerges, what is happiness? Right? So then we must understand that question. We must understand the answer to that question. That is the natural follow-up of the decision that we want to be happy, no?
These are all the questions are being thrown up in the air. That's all. So then that, of course, one will anyway learn in the course of life and unlearn and learn and fall back at it. That the solution is not being achieved. I mean, I'm not coming to a solution to my doubts or my question. I'm coming to the knowledge of these doubts and questions.
Yeah.
We want happiness. Okay, how do you get happiness?
That is what he's saying. So if the first process is to see what is worth understanding, then that is why he's going about initially just laying out all that needs to be understood first. So look, he's saying, see, I was able to be happy. I was able to be happy based on some understanding. And so I can share with you how I was able to be happy, and then you can see if that works for you. And now, what was it that allowed
But he's not sharing, huh?
I understood
He's not sharing. He's not sharing specifically, no. No, in no specific way he's sharing. He's just saying. He's saying, I became happy. I did this. I did. But what did he do?
He understood. That's what he's saying. He's saying what allowed me to be happy was understanding. That was all that he did. Understanding what? Understanding these three things. Understanding what existence is. Understanding what the Jeevan is. And understanding what humane conduct is. And based on understanding these three things, he was able to be happy. He's saying, what I found was that it is understanding that leads to happiness, and it is a lack of understanding that leads to unhappiness. So that is why he's sharing what he understood.
He's not sharing what he understood. He's sharing the method in which he understood.
No, like
I
he's
did
sharing.
that.
So, for instance, he's sharing what he understood was existence. So he's sharing how he saw, what he understood about existence, that existence is made up of nature and space, and nature is this kind, spaces of this kind. They are in the form of four orders. Then he's understood the Jeevan. He's already started to explain what the Jeevan is all about, that we have these 10 activities and they're functioning in this way. This is their purpose. This is the value of the Jeevan. This is the significance of the Jeevan. This is the significance of the human. This is the significance of the world, of existence. So he's explaining all these things that he's understood, that he's already covered to a large extent. And of course, there's a lot more to come since this is just an introduction. But even in the introduction, he's constantly been sharing what he understood. And what he's understood is the value of each entity. So when you understand how something is in its entirety, you are able to also see the place that each entity has in the whole. So that the place each entity has in the whole is its value in the whole, no? So the value of the Jeevan is that it is something that is capable of vidvata, that it is capable of knowledgeability. That is the value of the Jeevan. That is our value. So the value of the human being is that it is capable of being the knowledgeable entity, the entity that lives with knowledge. That is what it means to be human. That is what he understood. That is what allows him to live out justice. Why? Because he recognizes when he looks at another human being, then he is able to recognize, oh, this is another person. Their desire, their role, their significance, the meaning of their life is all about being able to live with understanding, not being able to live based on dogma or based on greed or based on fear, which is how society has been running up till now, because we don't understand what it means to be human. So this is how your understanding translates to your justice. This is how your understanding translates also to your happiness, because you see your value. You have confidence in yourself and you have confidence in living with others in a just way, because you see their worth, their value. So this is the understanding he's been sharing up till now, and he will share in more detail as we go forward.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, let's listen to how he goes about sharing it. It's best in his own words. Oh, should I play? If there's any confusion in the sense of
Yeah, please.
if you're
Please
not
carry on.
understanding what he's saying or why he's saying, we'll keep pausing and talk about it further.
ठीक है.
ये मनुष्य का
All right.
पहुंच. इस पहुंच में दौड़ करके क्या पाएंगे, इसका दौड़. पाने की बात प्रमाण का निरंतर दौड़. ये मनुष्य का पहुंच.
ये मनुष्य का बोझ, I thought I heard. So this is the burden of the human being, he says. The fact that we have these 4 stages of running. First to understand, then to live out our understanding, then to attain the goals of that living out of understanding, and then to sustain the evidence of those goals. So that is these 4 stages of running and work is the burden of the human. He's saying it, he's putting it in this way.
इस पहुंच में अस्तित्व की चारों अवस्था देखा तो मानव ज्ञानावस्था में गण्य होता है.
So in this burden, when you look at the 4 orders of existence, we see that the humans are counted within the knowledge order.
ज्ञानावस्था में गण्य होने का क्या आधार है भाई? मनुष्य जो है ना, जो जिसको समझाऊं मानता है, उस ढंग से कार्य व्यवहार करता है.
So what does it mean to be counted within the knowledge order? What is the basis, of being counted in the knowledge order? Then that is that humans are such that whatever they consider to be, whoever, I think, जिसको भी समझा हुआ मानता है, whoever they consider to be knowledgeable, whoever they believe to be knowledgeable, or rather you could even say whatever they accept that as they have understood, they will live according to that.
जो जिसको समझा हो मानता है उस ढंग से कार्य व्यवहार करता है.
So he's not talking about who they consider. That's what I thought. It's not about who they consider as knowledgeable. Whatever they accept as having understood, that is what their work and behavior will also be in line with. So humans are of the knowledge order because their work and behavior corresponds to whatever they accept as having understood.
जाना नहीं रहता है तभी भी मानने की बात हर व्यक्ति में है. मैं इसको जानता हूँ, ऐसा कहता है दावे के साथ.
Even when they don't understand, this fact of acceptance still, belief or acceptance still exists in each person. They will say with conviction, I know this, even if they don't understand it.
ठीक है, तो वो जाना नहीं रहता है, माना रहता है.
Okay. So they don't actually understand it, but they have believed it.
बोलते समय में जानता हूँ कहता है.
While speaking, they will say, I know.
ये व्यतिरेक है ही.
This Vyatirek is conflict, or this contrast, I suppose.
Contrast.
Vyatirek, let me just look it up. Distinction, this difference. Yeah, this contrast. So this contrast exists, that even when we don't understand, we will say, I know. Actually, we just believe, but we are saying, I know. Whereas there's a difference between understanding and believing.
भ्रमित आदमी में यही व्यतिरेक है. ये व्यतिरेक है ही. भ्रमित आदमी में यही व्यतिरेक है. जो कहता है
in the delusion person, this is the very contrast or distinction that exists.
है उसको समझा नहीं रहता है. यही व्यतिरेक है. जो कहता है उसको समझा नहीं रहता है. जागृत आदमी में क्या रहता है? जो कहता है उसको समझा रहता है.
So this is the distinction in the delusion person. What they say, they don't actually understand. And in the awakened person, what happens? What they say is what they have understood actually.
वस्तु के रूप में.
In the form of entity. You know, they understand what it is as an entity, as a whole.
कुछ भी कथन है उसके मूल में कोई वस्तु है, रहता ही है. यदि वस्तु
Whenever anything is said, at the root of that always exists some real entity. There must exist some entity.
जो कुछ भी कथन है उसके मूल में कोई वस्तु है, रहता ही है. यदि वस्तु नहीं है वो कोई शब्द भी नहीं है.
If there is no entity, then there is no word also.
कोई बात भी नहीं है. कोई भी बात होगा उसके मूल में उसका माने वस्तु निहित रहती है.
So when there is no entity, there can be no word for it, and therefore there will be no discourse about it. Nothing can be said about it. So if something is being said, then there will have to be some entity at the root underlying it.
कोई भी बात होगा उसके मूल में उसका माने वस्तु निहित रहती है. वस्तु को अर्थ कहते हैं. अर्थ कहने का मतलब है कोई वस्तु है वही अर्थ है.
And every entity has some meaning, is meaningful. What that means is that if there is an entity, it has a meaning.
अर्थ कहते हैं. अर्थ कहने का मतलब है कोई वस्तु है वही अर्थ है.
Sorry. So being meaningful means that there is an entity, that is its very meaning.
मानव शब्द रखा. मानव के मूल में मानव रहता ही है. तो
Like the word human. At the root of this word, there is a human that exists.
आप रहते हैं, मैं रहता हूँ, आप भी रहते हैं, आप भी रहते हैं, सब रहते हैं। मानव शब्द के मूल में मानव नाम की वस्तु रहती है।
So, like you exist, I exist, they exist, all of us exist. So, at the root of the word human, there exists a real entity that is a human being.
शब्द मानव नहीं है।
The word is not human being. The word itself is not the human.
ठीक है। शब्द एक वस्तु को इंगित कराने के लिए, निर्देशित करने के लिए शब्द।
The word is there to indicate towards, to point towards an entity.
और वस्तु मूलतः माने शाश्वत है, वस्तु रहता ही।
And an entity essentially is eternal. It exists.
ठीक है। इस ढंग से हर नाम से हम किसी वस्तु को बोध करना है।
All right. So in this way, with each name, we can understand or we can comprehend the entity that exists, that it is indicating towards.
जीवन नाम से भी कोई वस्तु को बोध करना है। जीवन नाम की वस्तु, जीवन कहते ही हम कितने लोग इस धरती पर होंगे जो जीवन को ही पहचानते हैं।
So with the name Jeevan also, we must comprehend the entity that is the Jeevan. So when we say the word Jeevan, when we talk about Jeevan, how many of the people on this planet
बोध करना है। जीवन नाम की वस्तु, जीवन कहते ही हम कितने लोग इस धरती पर होंगे जो जीवन को ही पहचानते हैं और शरीर को पहचानते हैं जीवन के नाम से। आप स्वयं सोच लो।
So how many people would there be on this planet who recognize the Jeevan, actually the Jeevan from the word Jeevan, or how many would there be who recognize, who think of both the Jeevan and the body as the word Jeevan? Basically, who take the name Jeevan and think of the actual Jeevan, or those when hearing the word Jeevan would think of the body and the Jeevan together as some amalgamation. To be that is what this word must be referring to.
वो ये तो प्रतिशत निकालोगे तो 99% आदमी शरीर को ही जीवन मानते हैं।
So if you take out a survey, then you'll find that 99% of people will consider the body itself to be the Jeevan.
आज की स्थिति में पहले भी ऐसे ही रहा होगा, कोई आश्चर्य नहीं है। अभी भी वैसे, आज की स्थिति में पहले भी ऐसे ही रहा होगा, कोई आश्चर्य नहीं है। अभी भी वैसे ही है जीवन को।
So that is the state of today, but earlier also it's been the same way. There is nothing to be surprised about.
पहले भी ऐसे ही रहा होगा, कोई आश्चर्य नहीं है। अभी भी वैसे ही है। जीवन को शरीर मानने का फलस्वरूप ही हम तमाम परेशानी का आधार बना, परेशानियों को भोगे। अब वो परेशानियों से मुक्ति पाने की इच्छा भी तैयार हुई, उसी इच्छा के आधार पर यह कार्यक्रम है।
So there's nothing to be surprised about. Today also it is the same as it has always been, and it is because of this considering the Jeevan to be the body that has been the basis of all of our problems, and then the desire to overcome these problems also emerged, and it is on the basis of this desire that this current program is also on its way.
चार अवस्था में से मनुष्य ही एक ऐसा आदमी है जो कि अपने को समझदार हुए बिना ये अपने में समाधानित होना नहीं। बाकी सब कैसे हैं भाई?
So out of these four orders, it is only humans that that can understand themselves and that can be resolved in their living.
समझे बिना कैसे अपने में समाधानित होना नहीं। बाकी सब कैसे हैं भाई? समझे बिना कैसा रहते हैं? उनका माने नियम है दूसरा है।
So then how are all the others then? How do they live without understanding? Their principle, their law is altogether different.
पदार्थावस्था जो नियंत्रित रहता है।
So the material order remains regulated.
तो जो कुछ भी बात रहती है वो नियम से नियमित रहता है.
Whatever that exists in the material order remains regulated based on laws.
और वही प्राणावस्था आती है तो फलस्वरूप नियंत्रित रहता है. पदार्थावस्था नियम से नियंत्रित होकर नियंत्रित रहता है. ठीक है.
And as a consequence, this biological order emerges, and how did he put it exactly? Basically, it was already regulated based on laws, and therefore even the biological order remains regulated.
और वही प्राणावस्था आती है तो फलस्वरूप नियंत्रित रहता है. पदार्थावस्था नियम से नियंत्रित होकर नियंत्रित रहता है. ठीक है.
So with the coming of the biological order also, the material order remains regulated. It remains regulated based on laws. So he's saying niyam se niyantrit hokar. So it becomes regulated by laws and thus becomes regulated.
उसके बाद जो प्राणावस्था आती है, जो अन्न वनस्पतियां होते हैं, ये बीजानुषंगी विधि से नियंत्रित रहता है.
Then, so that was about the material order. Then when the biological order emerges, it remains regulated on the basis of this Bij Anushangiya Vidhi. Now, Bij Anushangiya Vidhi is seed concordance, the method of seed concordance. So, you know how each seed determines what the plant is going to be like. That is the basis of its regulation.
पदार्थावस्था कैसा नियंत्रित रहा? तो परिणाम अनुषंगी विधि से नियंत्रित रहा.
How was the material order regulated? It was regulated on the basis of configurational concordance. Parinam anushangita. So the configuration of the material order determines its conduct. That is how the laws apply to it. So what is meant by this configuration is like atomic configuration and molecular configuration. And these configurations determine how it lives, basically.
Behaves.
Whereas for plants, for the biological order, now its living is determined not by its configuration, but by its seed, or by its plant sutra, or the DNA.
नियंत्रित रहने का प्रमाण ही है व्यवस्था के रूप में होना, निश्चित आचरण होना.
And the evidence of being regulated is itself living in order. That is, living with a definite conduct.
ये इस बात को हम देख सकते हैं.
This is something that we can see.
ये जब निश्चित आचरण एक परमाणु में है, निश्चित आचरण एक अणु में है, निश्चित आचरण एक अणुरचित रचना में है, जैसा माने धरती में है, इस प्रकार की निश्चित आचरण जब है, मनुष्य में भी निश्चित आचरण की जरूरत है.
So in this way, when there is a definite conduct in the atom, and there is definite conduct in a molecule, and then there is also definite conduct in molecular structures, such as this planet. This planet is a structure made up of lots of molecules coming together. In the same way, there is the need for definite conduct also within humans.
ठीक है. उसी बात ही प्राणावस्था में हर वनस्पति, औषधियां, झाड़, पौधे सब अपने अपने विधि से, बीजानुषंगी विधि से वो नियंत्रित है.
All right. So in the same manner, all the plants, the trees, the shrubs, the medicines in the biological order, they are all regulated on the basis of the seed concordance.
बीज संयोग, धरती, हवा, पानी, इनकी संयोग से वो नियंत्रित है.
It is regulated with the coming together of the seed, the earth and water, such things.
और तीसरा अवस्था जीव वंशानुषंगी विधि से नियंत्रित है.
Then the third order, that is animals, that is regulated on the basis of species concordance or lineage concordance. Vansh is actually just lineage.
मनुष्य जो है ना संस्कार अनुषंगी विधि से नियंत्रित रहना है.
And humans, you see, have to be regulated on the basis of sanskar concordance, or you could say understanding concordance, because sanskar, as we had discussed, are deeply held acceptances that are aligned with reality as it exists. So based on our understanding, when we see reality as it is, when we understand reality as it is, when that becomes accepted within us, that is what forms our sanskar. So say if we understand and we recognize that justice is a value universally desired by humans, it is valuable to humans. So if that becomes a deep acceptance within us based on some understanding, then that will be our sanskar. Then we will, our behavior will be determined by this acceptance. We will never, compromise justice in any interaction then, no matter what it may be. If we are unable to do it, even then we will think about, why am I not able to live out with justice? What would be the way to go about being just here? So that will never get compromised, no matter what else might be. So for instance, we often think that maybe health is a value for us. Health is a sanskar for us. It might be, but often sometimes something else that is more tempting comes up and health goes out the window. So that shows that that is not a sanskar, that is not a deeply held acceptance. That is a thought, we've agreed to it, we think it's somewhat right, it seems logical, but that is not a sanskar for us. So that is the difference between a deeply held, recognized truth, which is a sanskar, or just an agreement or a thought that we agree with at the level of logic. So yeah, human conduct is regulated on the basis of our sanskar, or I can't find an equivalent word in English, so I'm just going to use our understanding.
संस्कार क्या है? समझदारी बराबर संस्कार.
What is sanskar? Understanding equals sanskar. Yeah.
खत्म हो गया बात.
We should stop
समझदारी
Drishta.
जब
7:35,
Oh,
and
sorry.
it's a good culmination point also. He said, matlab, a thought ended, I feel. One thought.
Yeah. This is just an overview of the four orders and what keeps all the four orders regulated. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything?
Okay.
So we meet tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. See you.
See you. Bye.
Right.